Sailing into Saint-Valery-en-Caux is a bit like finding a diamond with a dark history lying on the pavement. I'd never visited before until a few weeks ago, and that's odd because I've sailed past it maybe half a dozen or a dozen times as it lays between Dieppe and Fécamp, and it's very easy to get to from, say, Eastbourne, where you would make the 50-mile-ish crossing to Dieppe, spend a little bit of time in Dieppe just to sort out the tides, and then make the 10-mile passage into Saint-Valery-en-Caux, where the lock gates are open 2 hours before high water and 2 hours after high water. So it's not really a mega challenge to get into this absolutely lovely little port. Another important reason for visiting Saint-Valery-en-Caux, as it's where the 51st Highland Division sacrificed their lives in order to facilitate the evacuation at Dunkirk. 1,000 Scots lost their lives, 500 were wounded, and in the end 11,000 members of the regiment were taken prisoner and transported to Germany. Churchill ordered the commanding officer, Major General Victor Fortune, that they were to fight to the last man in order to distract the Germans away from Dunkirk and give them a chance to get the men off the beaches there. The 51st Highland Division did exactly that. They fought on until they ran out of ammunition. The 51st had been sent by the British Expeditionary Force to help the French at the Maginot Line, so they were separated from the main British forces. But when the Germans went round the western end of the Maginot Line and headed down towards Dunkirk, encircling the British troops, General Fortune was ordered to go to Abbeville with his French colleagues from the Maginot Line and attack the Germans from the rear, which is exactly what they did. They were outnumbered by 400 tanks and outgunned by artillery and infantry divisions. And as Dunkirk was happening, Major Fortune was ordered to fall back towards Saint-Valery-en-Caux, and in doing so, of course, he pulled a lot of German troops away from Dunkirk and made that evacuation much easier. Fortune had been told that there would be a further Dunkirk-type operation out of St Valery from Portsmouth, and it would be commanded by Admiral William James. The 51st suffered dreadful casualties, and by the time they got into St-Caux they were down to 5 rounds of ammunition per man. They got themselves into the town, set up defences around the town, and prepared themselves to be lifted off from the harbour and the beaches below the 300-foot cliffs which are to either side of Saint-Valery-en-Caux town and harbour. Fortune then signalled Admiral James that he was ready, and James set off with a flotilla of small craft, and escorted by frigates and destroyers, he immediately set sail for St Valery, only to receive a signal from the Admiralty telling him to turn round, go back, and to cancel the operation. Churchill had managed to publicly turn Dunkirk operation into a sort of brave victory, but he felt the chances of getting 12,000 off the beaches and harbours of St Valery were tiny, and he didn't want the wonderful Dunkirk operation success to be besmirched by disaster further down the coast. Happily, Admiral James chose to ignore the order and carried on from Portsmouth across the Channel. Meanwhile, the Germans had set up artillery on the top of the 300-foot cliffs. The panzer divisions joined them and were pointing down into St Valery town and port. Major General Fortune informed Admiral James of this, the artillery and so on the cliffs, and James said, okay, we'll come in the darkness and pick you up off the harbour and the beaches, and darkness will be our friend. That'll be absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. You just got to wait for night. And in the meantime, his destroyers and frigates stayed out of artillery range, along with all the small boats. So darkness came, and with it came a pea soup fog. The little boats and the ships that were going to go into the harbour set off, and they just couldn't see. It was a pea souper. They couldn't see each other. They couldn't see anything. The whole operation just became totally impossible and incredibly dangerous. And so Admiral James ordered everyone back to just outside German artillery range and signalled to Fortune that it was hopeless and that they would try again the following night. Major General Fortune ordered the last reserves of ammunition to be issued, and he moved the main field hospital with over 500 men into the area around the port and continued to resist the German bombardment. The town became an absolute wreck. This continued during the night, and in the morning at 08:30, the French, who had also run totally out of ammunition, surrendered, and whilst Fortune continued to resist for another 2 hours, hoping they could hold out till nightfall and be evacuated then, at 10:30 he too surrendered to General Rommel, and 10,000 men of the 51st Highland Division were taken prisoner, along with Fortune, who was the most senior British officer ever to be captured during that war. As a matter of interest, of the 250-ish British prisoners of war that escaped from their camps and made it back to the UK, 134 of them were soldiers from the 51st Highland Division. Churchill ordered a security blanket over the entire operation. The death of the 1,000 soldiers and the 500 injured and the 10,000 prisoners was just not made public. It was just not talked about. It became part of the official Secrets Act of World War II. There's a granite stone now erected on the hillside as a tribute to the 51st Highland Division, and a very large military cemetery just outside the town. To make things happier, it's a lovely place to visit. It's well worth the time, it's well worth the effort, and the French people there make us very, very welcome. It's probably around 3 to 4 hours sail from Dieppe to Saint-Valery-en-Caux. The starboard pier with its lighthouse on the end is easily identifiable, and the port is in the cleft between the big white cliffs, so it's really pretty hard to get it wrong. On the port side there is an outlying pier, then a series of posts marking the channel. The next pier, which joins the land, appears to port, and then the channel narrows slightly. I suspect these were the places to the left and to the right that the 51st Highland Division were going to board the ships from. In the basin in front of the bridge there are a couple of mooring buoys for boats waiting to go through the lock. You're not allowed to moor up on the walls on either side, so you either stooge around or pick up a buoy. As always, the Bridge and Marina office monitors VHF Channel 9. There's a traffic light system beside the bridge, and you should observe the lights when the bridge opens, as normally priority is given to departing boats. Once you're under the bridge and through the lock, you turn hard to port, and the visitors' pontoon is on the far wall. All new modern pontoons and new electrical systems. It's a very well kept marina. The marina is big and stretches away into the distance, and there are chandlers and lift-out facilities on the other side. For once, the visitors' pontoon is close to the Marina office, which is the office beside the lifting bridge and dock. This was low water Dieppe. It's rather shallow. You don't want to get stuck here with a fin keel. This 16th century building is actually a museum, but I confess I've not visited it. There are several really nice restaurants in the town, particularly if you like seafood. When I cast off to head for Fécamp, I motored out into the basin, and a French guy on the pontoon beside the lock waved me down and asked if I'd give him a lift to his boat, which was in the drying basin outside. What I really regret I failed to do was to ask him how he got ashore when he arrived too late to lock through the previous day. I just wonder how he got off his boat and got to the shore. On my next visit I'll stay longer than just overnight. I didn't know at that time about the 51st Highland Division story, and I just thought that Saint-Valery-en-Caux was a really nice place to be. A couple of my subscribers to another video, Ian and Sarah Ward, asked if I was going to do a video about Saint-Valery-en-Caux, as he and his wife were interested in the 51st story and they intended to sail there next year. I'm so grateful to them, as I've really enjoyed the research of this little-known story enormously. A real piece of secret history. I hope you found it a bit interesting, all this. If you have, I'd be grateful if you press the subscribe button, which means that you'll just get a notification when I release another video, and it helps me build my channel, and I'm grateful for that. And good sailing, fair winds, safe landfalls. Bye.